Welcome back to the Gardening with Joe and Holly radio show. Thank you for being part of the program today. Happy that you're with us, listening on the radio, podcast replay, in-studio video replay, however you're doing it. Happy to have you along. Well, Holly, one of the key to a good garden, a successful garden, is the soil. Soil is the lifeblood of the garden, and we're going to talk about how we can build our soil to get it the best that it can be.
A lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, but maybe a lot of people don't always realize how vital it is to have good soil, healthy soil, nutrient-dense soil, etc., because it is the lifeblood of the garden, of the plants. A lot of people think you have to feed your soil, and then that feeds the plants, or you have to feed the plants. Feed the plant. That's
feed the plant with that with a liquid that we're not going to mention.
But it's like plant crack.
Yeah. It's a miracle something.
Yeah.
Because that is what they've been educated on through the marketing of that particular brand.
And at one time, you were the same way.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes.
Not because of the marketing, because of the background of farming.
How you were raised.
Right.
And it's a common misconception. It's completely fair. However, through education and me gently poking Joey in the right direction, he has learned, and a lot of people have learned, the importance of having nutrient-dense soil. So we're going to talk about how to build your soil and kind of understand it in a way. So you want to use
organic matter,
not topsoil.
You want to start by adding regular organic material, whether that is a compost in which you've purchased or compost in which you've made yourself. Now, we never can make enough compost ourselves, so we have to that in some form. Whether that being buying bulk material, which typically your independent garden center will have bulk material available where they will deliver it for a fee, and you can get 1 to 8 yards. Now, that's a lot of compost.
Yeah.
Because
8 cubic yards.
8 cubic yards. Now, a cubic yard is think of a box, 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot. That's how much 1 yard is.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
A lot of soil.
But you can get them at a phenomenal deal compared to like that 1 cubic yard of soil. Maybe let's say it's $40. Okay. If you went to purchase it in the bag form, you're looking at like $200+.
Yeah, if you just want a little bit,
if not more.
Yeah, if you just want a little bit, like if you just want a square cubic foot,
or topping off some grow bags or containers on the porch.
Fine.
Yeah.
But if you are filling some raised beds, a lot of containers,
you're gonna have to mortgage the house.
Right. So anyway, so you want to add organic matter. That could be your own compost. That could be leaves. That could be seed free and weed free,
chemical free, grass clippings,
weed free, seed
free, weed free. Yeah. Because when we say chemical free, seed free grass clippings, if the grass has gone to seed, that's not going to be good because you're going to bring that into the garden, or you're going to, if your compost doesn't get hot enough, it will cause the seeds to be viable. This is in the hot composting method. There is a cold composting where you just pile it all up, let it break down, and your seeds are going to be, the weed seeds are going to be viable. Chemically wise, if you apply a weed and feed to your yard that has a 2,4-D, which is a broadleaf spray that kills all the broadleaves. That's why the grass looks pretty and you don't have the dandelions or the lamb's quarter or fill in the blank grass or weeds. That is potent enough that it will stay with the grass clipping through the compostable form into black soil and be distributed into your garden. And that 2,4-D is still active and will affect your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, your green beans. And it can take many years of remitigation of that soil in order to purge it from your garden in which has been introduced from your yard.
Right.
So you want to be aware not to include those grass clippings or just avoid the weed and feed altogether, because fun thing here, bees need those flowers, which is dandelions, as the first food of the summer or of spring. And fine and dandy, if you want to take dandelions out of your yard, if you're going to do that, you need to talk to everybody in a 5-mile radius of your residence, because that's how far those seeds will fly.
Yeah.
So you better be nice to everybody and make sure they all get the dandelions if you don't want any in your yard.
It's kind of like fighting an uphill battle. Anyway,
They're
so you want to, I think they're pretty. Yeah. I like them. So you want to also think about testing your soil to understand its needs. If you are not having success, that may warrant a soil test to get an idea of what's going on beneath the surface.
From growsmart.com or Soil Savvy. All these can be found at our parent website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, underneath the Money tab and Season 9 tab, with the soil. Holly, you can't. There's certain telltale signs that the plants will distribute or show you that, hey, something's not right. But you can't look at a pile of soil and go, that pH is 7.9 and it's got this. There's no way of knowing it. You can't know that by looking.
And there's these like DIY situations where people are like, add vinegar, take some soil and put some vinegar, and then if it bubbles, it means it's acidic. And there's no science behind that. You just want to utilize a soil test.
There are some wonderful DIY things that you can do in your backyard with the garden. Soil testing is not one of them.
No. So anyway, we want to minimize soil compaction. And a lot of the easiest way, the most basic way to do this would be to make walking rows and planting rows. That's one way. Another thing would be raised beds, raised berms. There's hugelkultur, where you grow out of a rotten rock. That would help.
Not a rotten rock. Log. That's covered by soil.
But it's basically, it rots down.
It rots down, and it's kind of a little mound or hill, and you grow on that hill.
I just always have rocks on my brain.
Before we went to raised beds, we did the permanent grow area and designated walk area to minimize the soil compaction. We moved to raised beds because of the weed issue of dealing with weeds all the time. We went from 1,800 square feet to 650 square feet and still produced the same amount because we brought in good soil, and it's elevated and it's on irrigation and it's a lot less maintenance, though there's still weeds. Just because you go to raised beds, that is not we're done with weeds for the rest of our lives. That just minimizes the weeds. And if you stay on top of it and weed as the weeds come up, you don't have a pasture you have to weed out around your tomatoes or peppers. In some aspects, that can actually benefit the plants that you're growing because it creates a shade and a living mulch on the soil. It does take nutrients away from the peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, green beans, but it shades the soil where it's not getting baked on the 100-degree days. It kind of, in a weird way, works.
Right.
So if you're lazy, it kind of maybe will work in a strange way. You want to mulch to protect.
That's not called lazy. That's called working smarter, not harder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people want a pristine magazine cover PBS style looking garden. And if you have the time and you choose to do that, that's great. Wonderful. We will be the first to say that when you go to our website and look at the videos, ours is not that then. We are just everyday backyard gardeners.
Yeah, and a lot of people, have jobs or other commitments and don't have time to weed every square inch.
But if you love to weed, please send us an email at TWVG gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's our other email, and we'll talk. Mulching can suppress the weeds. We encourage a organic mulch, such as leaves, shredded grass clippings, again, chemical-free, seed-free. Synthetic mulches are not good because they don't break down. Synthetic mulches may be more presentable in a flower bed or side of a house, a rose bed, rather than an edible garden, or around ornamentals or perennials like asparagus or raspberries or blackberries, something like that, in which it's going to be there for a long time. The problem with that is when you for those, you're not digging the soil, you're just removing the fruit or the vegetable that's above the ground. So you can do that. Wood chips are great for a walk path. You can get those from getchipdrop.com and have free chip drop free wood chips delivered right to your driveway. Free service there. Avoid synthetic fertilizers. We've talked about that because it's not helping the soil.
No.
You're wanting to feed the soil, which feeds the plants. Mm-hmm. There are organic fertilizers that do just that.
But just because it's organic doesn't mean that it's necessarily safe.
Correct.
So you want to follow the directions with any sort of fertilizer, additive, whatever you're adding to your garden, whether it's organic or not, because just because more is good, it does not mean it is
just
better.
Because you think.
Just because you think more is good. Oh, half a cup is great, so I'll do a whole cup because that's going to be the best. No, first of all, most of these.
Would you do that if you're baking a cake? No. You wouldn't put 2 cups of flour in if it required 1.
That would be probably a very dense cake.
Yeah, but it's the same concept.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a reason why there are directions on these packages, the product, because you don't want to overuse the product and cause possibly damage to your soil, to your plants, to your ecosystem. Second of all, a lot of these organic fertilizers are very water soluble, so you're just flushing your money, whatever product down the drain or down
the sewer.
Which
is going into the lakes and the rivers, causing algae bloom,
right?
Causing other issues,
right? So you want to make sure you are using them responsibly per the package directions. And if you're not sure, you can go to the Not a Dollar store, buy yourself some cheap measuring cups, and they can be for your garden supplies.
With the grass clippings, if you have seed-free and chemical-free grass clippings, you don't necessarily want to apply that directly after you've bagged them or it's been cut. You want to let them dry because you can develop mold and fungus in around your vegetation, which can potentially distribute into the plant or on the leaves, which can cause some problems. So you just want to let it dry. If you've bagged it, just take it and have a certain area where you can just dump it and then a one layer, or in a hot day it doesn't take long for it to dry, but you don't want to put it right around your plants right away is right. what I'm getting at. Well, yeah. Soon it will be warming up, Holly, and we want to make sure you can enjoy your yard without sharing it with those beetles and grubs.
Yeah, with spring just around the corner, it's time to start thinking about controlling beetles and grubs in the yard. There's, people are talking about the Japanese beetles, and they are waiting.
Grub Gone can be applied to turf or garden around ornamentals to control those grubs and lessen the impact of the beetles have on your yard this summer. Easy to use. Use a commercial spreader or irrigate it right into the soil. It is specifically designed to target grubs and beetle invaders without harming beneficial insects like bees, butterflies, and ladybugs.
And to be honest, it's the only non-chemical that works. Find out more at phyllombioproducts.com. That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com.
Or grubgone.com.